Welcome back, everybody, to another episode here of the Unscripted Support Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure to have Blake from ASPIE-R.com. Obviously, he's going to do his own introduction, but I'm very happy. I think today's conversation is going to be very beneficial for those families who sometimes, feel alone, may be overwhelmed with everything they're going through. So Blake, thank you so much, man.
Oh, I appreciate being here, Michael. I am really excited about being on this podcast because I really just want to provide support for people that are, what I'd say, families that are facing some of the things that I know you're facing, that I've faced with having neurodiverse children. And many times it's a lonely walk. And so I don't want anybody to feel like they're alone. And so I'm grateful to be here. What I do is I do coaching specifically for families of teens and young adults
Yeah.
with autism, ADHD, and other neurodiversities. And I really look at myself as more of an independence coach, is really what I focus on, is helping kids launch into life successfully and become independent. And so what I founded my business on, actually have a few different businesses. So I have Aspire, and that it's a funny play on words. So it's not spelled like you would normally spell Aspire. It's actually ASPIE
Mm.
r.com. The reason for that is when my son first got diagnosed, and then me shortly after, we were diagnosed with Asperger's.
Mm.
And so the terms we used at that time was ASPIE.
Oh,
And so when I got into coaching, I said, "Hey, I want to take these Aspies and help them rise higher,
mm.
aspire." And that's how that came. But obviously, Asperger's is not really a term we use these days, and so everything's been kind of put under the autism umbrella. But that's where I got started, was in that area.
That's good. That's good. And I think it's needed. We talked about it before that very hard to be a functioning parent while being exhausted.
Yes.
And it's even more difficult being exhausted and trying to look for resources. And I think always having a coach always helps, right? If athletes have coaches, why not parents that are going through that same marathon in life, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting about it is everywhere you look, there's experts, right?
Mm.
And the challenge is many times is we just get overwhelmed with so much information.
Oh yeah.
And the thing that I have found, Michael, and I don't know if this was part of your experience or not, is you would find one thing that says do it this way, and then you'd find something that says no, don't do it that way, that's the wrong way of doing it, and then you're confused, which way do I do it, how do I raise my kids, how, and so as part of coaching, what I try to help is I try to help parents find out what's right for their situation, and with their young adult or teen or
Yeah.
child that we're working with on them.
100%. I think there's no like perfect formula, right?
Mm-mm.
I think we've talked about it before that there's different family dynamics. There's the blended family.
Mhm.
There's the obviously families per se, but there's blended. There's divorced families. There's siblings now, maybe being guardians or being expected to be guardians. So each family's different.
That is so true. And that is so true. And what's unique a lot of times too with those different dynamics of, say, divorces or even blended families, like there's times where I'll be working with a couple, but the couple is mom and stepdad, and then I'm working with dad and stepmom, and they're in different locations and they have different ways of raising their kids, and woo, you talk about some dynamics. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think once you can show them and kind of tailor it to the child, then everybody can get on the same page and it makes things a lot simpler, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody's after the same thing. And I think if that's what you keep at the heart of it all, is that it's the child that we're trying to help get, whether it's independent, and independence looks different for every kid. Some kids that means living on their own and working full time and all of that. Others it just might mean having a part-time job and going to day hab and things of that nature as well. So everybody's independence is different.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And it's good that you mentioned that because I know that when I started and my wife, when we started in this journey, I know that there was a lot of denial and even more from my side, ego.
Hmm.
But when you do come into that acceptance phase, I would say, leave the ego aside, put the best interest of the child first. I think that's where the results really, really come in.
Absolutely. And I think when we look at ego, because I was very much the same way as you.
Mhm.
So ego and fear kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And essentially, when my wife and I, we're a blended family, so we have a his and hers collection. We have four kiddos, all four neurodivergent. We have two that have autism. One probably has autism undiagnosed, and then the third is ADHD and dyslexic. And but my wife's ADHD, I'm autistic.
Mm.
When we first got married, probably 2, 3 years in, she said, like, I really think you need to get our eldest son checked out. I think he's on the spectrum. Well, he was my mini me. And I was going, there's no way that he's on the spectrum. And we've had, and this is all seriousness, we've had two arguments in 18 years of marriage.
Wow.
Just two. One of them was about that. And
Wow.
so finally I gave in. I took my son. Sure enough, he got diagnosed with Asperger's and a math deficit disorder. And then I got diagnosed with Asperger's as well. And I denied it. I said, nope, doctor got it wrong. I'm a functioning adult. I've
Yeah.
gone through this. But then what I started doing, Michael, is I started actually digging in.
Mm.
And once I started digging in, my whole childhood was explained. I was going, aha,
Yeah.
this is why I felt this way. This is why I had very limited friends. This is why I struggled socially. This is why. And I said, okay, well, I don't want the same thing for my son.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've looked at any of the stats, but they're scary.
Mm-hmm.
They're 9 times more likely to be hooked on a substance or do substance abuse,
Yep.
7 times more likely to commit suicide, you know, 5 times more likely to be living at home full time permanently. And then the stats around career, only
Oh,
15%, 1 5, have full time jobs.
yeah.
And usually they're averaging around $9, $10 an hour. So they're really underpaid. And I said, I don't want that for my son. So what did I do that was different? And so I went in and I started working with him, and we created a plan. And I know that's kind of what you do for the families on that side. I created a 5 year plan because I'd had a conversation. He got diagnosed when he was 15.
Okay.
And so we had a conversation, and he told me he was never going to work. He was never going to go to college. He was never going to drive. He was never moving out. And I thanked him for his opinions.
Yeah.
And we put together a plan, and he accomplished all of it in 3.5 years.
Wow. That's huge.
It was massive, and the credit goes to him. But what I learned is that the way I think
Mm-hmm.
really brings a different dynamic than the traditional paths
Mm.
to the way that many of the quote unquote professionals have been doing it.
Yeah.
And I started digging in and looking, okay, why was I different? And I
Mm-hmm.
discovered kind of a formula that I used to coach. And, and it made a tremendous difference. But I just wanted to say I was against and denying. And really what it came down to is I was scared.
Yeah.
I was scared that people were going to judge him. And when they judged him, they were judging me.
Yeah. 100%.
And once I moved past that, yeah, once I moved past that, things kind of went the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah, I was in that same boat, but I also think, and again, this is the way I dealt with it afterwards was my definition now of denial, what is at least my definition again, is how selfish I was.
Hmm.
Because I was only thinking about how now my career changed or now my plans changed. So everything was around me, right? And again, that could be ego, that could be selfishness, that could be fear, like you mentioned. But the longer you stay in that stage, the worse. There's no benefit of being in that stage. And I think that's why this conversation is so good because parents who are going through this situation that might feel that denial, that they only know even if they don't share it, it's in their mind.
Absolutely. And I see it in a lot of the dynamics of working with the parent sets that I
Hmm.
work with is typically, and I'm not saying this is all the time, but typically what I see is traditionally dads are the ones that really struggle with
Oh yeah.
it. And I truly believe it's because we look at that as part of our identity and not just looking at our son or daughter as a whole by themselves. We're kind of making it a part of us. And then that's that fear. And that's where the challenges really occur. But once we can recognize and understand that, then we can free ourselves and then we can shift how we parent a little bit. Because I will tell you how we parent our kids, especially families that have neurotypical
Hmm.
children and
Hmm.
neurodivergent, they have to be parented differently. They
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle because you have both. And what the complexity of that is your neurotypical child is going to say, well, why are you dealing with them differently? That's not fair, right? And so I used to tell my kids that fair is not always equal
Hmm.
and that we have to do the best for that specific individual, and it's not always going to look the same. And
Yeah.
so it sounds like you have some experience in that area.
Yeah, but well, not yes and no. Amanda is only 3, so she's too little to.
Okay.
But we know that it's going to come to a point that we need to start preparing that mindset to be able to have those conversations at one point.
Mhm.
But 100%. And I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing because again, these is often conversations that are not addressed, I would say. And I see it too from obviously from a financial point of view, it's a very high indicator on how you manage your other areas in your life, right? And I see that the same thing. The dad is, the spear, but at the same
Mhm.
time, if there's no balance and or there's denial, or maybe there could be acceptance but not involvement, right? It's like, okay, I accept that there's
Mhm.
autism, but his mom handles that. You want to make sure that as a father, both parents, but
Yes,
in this case as a father, get involved as much as possible with the family. Don't try to delegate this like this is a job. I would say to get involved as much as possible to tighten that family unit because the divorce rates are very high.
absolutely. And I will tell you just from personal experience, they don't even have to be married. They could still be, having their own separate lives. But when both parents are involved,
Yeah.
the success rate of the child goes way up.
Oh yeah.
And so, and it's interesting because many times when we get the shift in the dad,
Hmm.
then they become some of the best parents for that neurodivergent child that you could ever ask for because they finally get it. And dads have this energy that's different from moms. Moms, I truly believe, are the foundation. And I think they're the most important part of raising a child. But the dads, when you add that additional energy and that focus that they can bring, that's where I see a lot of growth happen pretty quickly. So it's just really trying to bring them both on the same page is kind of the trick.
That's awesome. And now going back to your coaching practice, do you have a couple common, I would say, misconceptions or mistakes that you've seen?
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that I hear anytime I put a poll out, probably I think a month ago, and I just said, okay, on this poll, I'm going to ask you what are the top problems that your teen or young adult is facing right now, and the number one by far was motivation/laziness.
Oof.
Motivation/laziness. And the parents, they want to know, how do I motivate my kid to stop being lazy?
Mm.
And there's a misconception there.
Okay.
The misconception is that I will say, I'm not going to say 100% because I can't
Hmm.
go that far, but I'll say 98% of the kids that I've met are not unmotivated.
Hmm.
They're scared.
Okay.
They have this fear, and the fear is either a fear of overwhelm, it's a fear of uncertainty, it's a fear of the future. And for our kids, they'd rather stay stuck because they're safe,
Mm.
right? And so what we have to do is we have to be able to address those different fears to teach them how to start moving forward. And then I usually say something that really catches everybody's attention. I will say motivation is overrated,
Mm-hmm.
that you really don't need motivation to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
What you need momentum. And
Mm-hmm.
momentum is consistent action.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens along the way is when you get this consistent action, that's where motivation actually comes from. There's just a recent scientific study that showed that motivation comes after you take action. It doesn't come before it. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's waiting to get this feeling of motivation to go do something, but really you get it after you do it. And so if you can
Yeah,
do something consistently, the momentum,
makes sense.
that's where you see success. And I like to give this analogy is because parents get really intense too. They say, all right, especially dads, we come in and say, all right, we're going to do this. Today is your day. You're going to go do all these things you hadn't done in the last 20 years. You're doing them today, right? And so I equate that to like going to the gym. So if we could go to the gym for 8 hours in one day, that's intensity, right? You're going to work out, you're going to be probably gain a little bit of strength, but you're going to be exhausted
Mm-hmm.
for the next probably 2, 3 weeks. But if you took that same 8 hours and you broke it up into 20-minute increments,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden now you can go to the gym for 24 days in a row. You gain more energy, you gain more strength, you have more stamina, and you keep on
Habit.
going,
Now,
right?
now it's a habit,
And
right?
now it becomes a habit at the same time. And where many parents make a mistake is they want to go all in and they come in with this intensity. Well, this is where many times you hear the burnout word that happens for not only the child, but the parent as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, but if we went in small increments, now we get them moving.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get them moving, that's where the motivation starts kicking in. That's where you start seeing the results that you want. And that's really the trick that I have kind of, I'm not going to say it's really my strategy that I have actually trademarked. It's called the ideal launch strategy.
Yes.
And the ideal is an acronym, and the I is for identity.
Mm.
And so many times these kids, they don't have an identity of somebody that can do these things. They have an identity of somebody that's not worthwhile, somebody that doesn't belong, somebody that is just incapable. And if we can create the identity, then you move to the D, which is direction. And now you can get them to choose a direction. Before they were too scared to choose a direction because all they saw was pain. Then E is for executive functioning because they do have to have some executive functioning to be able to do
Yeah.
these things. And then A is the action. So that's where we get them taking action. And then L is the life skills. And when you knock those out,
Oh, yeah.
you get your kid
Yeah.
launched in life and independent, whatever that again looks like for them. But it
That's
all comes back to that identity aspect.
now and thinking about that, do you offer your coaching also encompasses not only the child, the teen, for example, but also the parents?
Yes, absolutely. So I do different dynamics. So sometimes I'm just coaching the teen or the young adult. Sometimes I'm coaching just the parents. And then many times I'm coaching both. And what we do when I coach both is I'll visit with the parents separately, but then we'll have family sessions where we all come
Oh,
together and whatever we're working on is kind of parallel path to
yeah.
bring everything and get it to moving forward.
Makes sense, makes sense. You did mention that from the beginning that the blended, yeah, 100%. No, that's good. That's good. And now what is, I would say, just thinking about it from the families we cater to, I think there a major shift in mindset. It's on the parent side because something that I see with Christian, for example, true for me, true therapy begins at home, right?
Mhm.
The therapist can be 2 hours, 3 hours with him, but if I when he comes home and I do the opposite, like for example, the therapy is around taking making him aware that he shouldn't have the tablet, for example,
Okay.
for so long. But then he comes to the house and I give him a tablet because I'm busy. In reality, I'm not helping. So I'm not helping the therapy strategy or the plan that's there. So
Correct.
I would assume in your case it's the same, right? You can build a tailored strategy and everything, but the parents need to be in.
The parents are the most crucial piece. And so I call it the X factor. And the X factor is a combination of the environment.
Mhm.
So if in your case, like if you're giving the tablet to your son when he gets home, you're not making the environment supportive of the mission or the outcome that everybody's after, right? And so what we have to do is we have to get the environment correct. Sometimes that is the physical environment.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's the emotional environment. Sometimes that's the mental environment. So for example, I had a parent one time that she would actually go to her daughter's apartment and she would clean the apartment. She would change the cat litter out. She would make and prep meals for the week for her daughter. And you know, if her daughter wasn't capable, I would say that's great. You're an incredible mother. Daughter was very capable, and so mother was enabling daughter to just continue the same path. So I'm over here working with the daughter on being taking over many of these independent tasks, and mom's coming in and doing this. So I had to have a conversation with mom, and mom looks at it that she's over here saving her daughter.
Mhm.
And so what I had to get mom to do is shift from having this rescuer mentality to a
Mhm.
coaching mentality. Now, we didn't want to do it completely overnight where she stopped helping, but we wanted to start doing it where when she would go over,
Mhm.
all of a sudden her daughter needed to be by her side.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden we pushed it where the daughter was doing it with mom by the daughter's side.
Mhm.
And then we did it where the daughter was up here doing it herself and mom was taking a step back to finally where the mom would really just come once a week or once a couple of weeks to make sure things were getting done.
You know that I think we're guilty of that as well because at one point I remember that we stopped doing it because of the same reasons, but in the morning before going to school, Christian and Amanda, Christian already knows how to dress himself, right? But it
Hmm.
came to a point that my wife and myself would help him dress, even though we knew, but at the same time we were like, okay, let me help him. He's gonna take a long time. And it came to a point that he wasn't actually speeding or doing it himself in a way that consistent, faster. So I'm 100%. I agree with that because I was there.
Absolutely. And for the smaller kids, you know, this is where parents were on a schedule. We got to be out the door. We got to have kids somewhere at a time. And
Yeah.
kids are sometimes playing. They're not even thinking about getting dressed. And we just go in and we do it. And I'm not going to tell you that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just going to tell you that sooner or later, you're going to have to shift it a little bit so that the kids are starting to do it, or else they're going to be 25 and you're still going to be doing it with them. And
Yeah.
then it becomes a little awkward at that time. But the other thing that I see a lot of times with parents is the reason they do those things is
Mhm.
because that's the way they bond with their children.
Mm. That's
And so what I would challenge you to do is find a different way in the same space of bonding with like Christian in that side,
yeah.
right?
In our case, we started walking
Mm,
together, exercise. Just walk half an hour, 45 minutes as a family.
yeah.
And that's helped us a lot. So we shifted that again, taking care of the rescuer mindset
Hmm.
to now let's do activity together. We're doing it, we're watching, we're getting outdoor, we're breathing. So it's helped us, like you mentioned, it's helped us a lot.
Absolutely. And I remember, you know, in our household, we were very structured. My wife was an educator. My parent or my mom and many of my family members were all educators, and it was great. That's probably why I went undiagnosed for a long time, is because I grew up in a very structured environment, and that's what I needed to thrive. And anytime I got out of structure, that's where I had my biggest challenges.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's the only thing I knew. So we had a very structured environment. But some things that I would tell you, especially with Christian and then your daughter getting older, is put your kids in a position to start learning, you know, the adult skills at a young age in a safe place. So I'll give you an example is, and this is dating me a little bit, but when like the first iPad came out,
Mm,
my daughter was like 7 years old
mm,
and she wanted the iPad and we weren't just going to give it to her.
mhm,
And so we actually sat there and we talked to her about how she could earn her own iPad. And we
mhm,
gave her opportunities. But then, before we even did that, we actually made her put together a presentation on why she needed an iPad.
mm.
So she started learning how to do PowerPoint at 7 years old.
My
And
God.
again, we weren't looking for anything like super over the top. We were just wanting her to get into the ability of thinking about why you want something
Yeah.
and then being able to present and communicate why you wanted something.
Mm,
And so we did that with all of our kids. And sometimes they got it, sometimes they didn't. Like to this day, my son still wants a fox.
yeah.
And he wanted this fox as a pet. And he presented like 3 times in a row, and we kept on saying no. And he goes, but his presentations got better every time and a little more convincing. But the fox just didn't really fit into our family dynamic.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
What do you imagine? No, that's 100%. For Christian, and again, I'm just giving my our
yeah.
experience. I think with time, because he, even though he's 7,
Hmm.
still not in the stage of comprehensive. So you would ask him something and he still doesn't comprehend the question. So we
Sure.
leave that later on. But he understands that at the end of the day, whatever we do is for his best. And
Hmm.
having that family shifting from, again, being the rescuer to now the mentor, I would say,
Hmm.
guide him. Now he's asking for everything. So that's our way of, controlling every. If you want something, don't have a meltdown. Don't
Yes.
ask for it, right? Say please. Understand that doesn't mean that because you're asking for it, you're going to get it, right? So little by little, but it takes time. But I 100% agree with you.
Exactly. And it's not an overnight process by any means. It takes a lot of time. Um, One of the things that we used to do was we made a decision to do dinner around the table and not around the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And at the table, we banned all electronics.
No, perfect.
And that forced us as a family, there were 6 of us, that forced us to have to communicate with each other.
Talk, conversation.
And it made we would get these table topics where you would pass a question out and then we'd have to answer the question. And then we actually started transforming it into a little bit of a different dynamic where we would say, okay, my wife called them sparkles and duds. What was your sparkle today? So what was the best thing that happened? And then your dud, what was the worst thing that happened?
Mm-hmm.
And so then we would ask, with the dud, what did you learn from this? Or how did it serve you in a certain way?
Mm-hmm.
And what we were trying to do is we were trying to teach them how not to get into that victim mentality that many of us can fall into and how to reframe any kind of possibly failure into something that was more of a learning moment, not actually a failure.
Yeah.
Because if we're learning, we're not really failing.
100%, 100%. So Blake, where can families find you if they want to, if obviously they want to get in touch with you? Where would they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna actually I'm getting ready to release a brand new website.
Mm-hmm.
And so the website is actually blakebaumann.com.
Okay.
And so BLAKEBAUMANN.com. And then on Instagram, Blake Baumann Official is my handle.
Okay.
And and then of course, Aspire is still there, ASPIE-R.com. And then I have one more for you. And I've started, it's called the Autism Independence Academy. And it's focused on helping young adults and families to launch their kids into successfully as an adult. And that's AIA-launch.com.
No.
And so those are all the places to find me. And then I'm sure if you look up my name, you'll see me on Facebook as
Uh,
well.
no. So, and really quick, because this is something I'm going to put in the description. The book. I know that you
Yes,
that's coming
yes.
out.
So
So.
I just wrote a book. It's called The Autism Launch Plan. And right now, literally, it just went on Amazon about a week and a half ago, but I'm doing something special for your listeners. Is there's going to be a link, and if they click on it, I'm going to give the book to them for free. They just got to pay the shipping and handling to get it to wherever they're at. Only in the US as of right now, but if they pay the shipping, the book's free for them. And I would highly recommend the book. It provides the structure, it talks about the reasons kids get stuck
Okay.
and how to build a plan to help them move forward.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I'll put that in the links. But Blake, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I truly believe that again, these are solutions that are not often talked about or get much exposure. So for me, it's been a pleasure having you on the episode today.
Michael, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And I think what you do is so incredibly important for these families. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you, thank you. So everybody, thank you for your time, and to the next one.